Hello guys, welcome back to another video. We are back working on the cheapest R56 Mini Cooper S in the country. Before we get into things, make sure you give this video a like. It really does help me out and it's greatly appreciated. Now then, what are we doing today? So we are working on the front end. So in the previous video, you'll know that we removed the front subframe for refurbishment. So we took it down to the bare metal. We then applied some rust converter, gave it a few coats of primer and then a few coats of black, and it's looking absolutely amazing. Now it's time to start reassembling the front subframe so it can go back in the car. So we have all new suspension components, so new wishbones, new drop links, new track rod assemblies, boots, clips, the whole lot, new bushes, and I have opted for these Powerflex polyurethane bushes for the rear wishbone bushes, and I have also opted for these Powerflex polyurethane bushes for the anti-roll bar as well. Now I have used these Powerflex polyurethane bushes on a few cars now. I've had great success with them. They last forever, and you will see, but they are so much easier to install compared to the conventional rubber bushes. So in my opinion, if you are doing something like this, you know, reassembling a front subframe or, you know, replacing a bush in a control arm, do opt for these Powerflex polyurethane bushes and thank me later. Now I am also installing a couple of other Powerflex polyurethane bushes as well. So we have one here for the right side engine mount. This is like an insert. It basically just stiffens up the engine mount slightly and takes out any slack in the old rubber. Now these engine mounts, they are in great condition. There was, you know, no excessive play in them. If there was, then I would have just replaced the entire mount, but as there wasn't, I just opted for these inserts, you know, and then gave them a bit of a clean up. I think you would agree they look pretty much brand new. Now for the other side, the mount is actually in the gearbox, but again I am going to install one of those inserts once the gearbox goes back into the car. Now then, before we start reassembling the front subframe, we're actually going to start with installing the front hubs and hub carrier. Now if you saw the previous video where I refurbished the original hubs or wheel bearings, you'll know that these are not those. So why have I decided to replace them? So essentially the new wheel bearings come with all new bolts and a new nut for the drive shaft. These have to be replaced. I didn't know that at the time, but I thought I may as well buy the wheel bearings. It comes with this bolt kit, and yeah, we have a fresh new wheel bearing. The original had covered 80-odd thousand miles, so just as well that we replace it anyway. Obviously we have nice smooth wheel bearing now. Okay then, so hub assembly installed, new pinch bolt in place. It's time to torque it down to 100 Newton meters now. There we are then, all torqued down. I'm just going to do the exact same for the other side as well. There we go then, other side done as well. And now we can get started on the subframe itself. So first thing what we'll do is get the power steering rack mounted to the subframe. It's just held in by 3 bolts. And they take an E14 socket. Now I can get all 3 bolts torqued down to 100 Newton meters. There we are. Okay then, next up we are going to install the new Powerflex polyurethane bushes into the rear bush carriers here. And the good thing about Powerflex is they have a QR code on their box for their fitting instructions. So I've just headed over there right now, and this is how the bush assembly fits inside of the carrier and on the end of the wishbone there. So just reading through the instructions quickly, make sure it's clean and corrosion free on the wishbone. Obviously they're new wishbone, so we haven't got to worry about that. Remove the bush, that's obviously not applicable to us. Lightly roughen the bore of the bracket with some emery cloth, and then apply a light smear of washing up liquid around the bore of the bracket and taper the lip of the larger 5201B bush. So first of all then, I'm just going to scuff the bores up a little bit. There we go then, nice and easy. I'll just give a smear of some washing up liquid. And on the tapered end of the bush as well. Now I'm guessing you are supposed to use some kind of press or pulling tool to get this in, but I'm just going to try and do it by hand. Now if you have a regular bush, you are 100% going to have to use some kind of tool, but the beauty about these Powerflex polyurethane bushes is they are usually a lot easier to install. As you can see, it's gone through. Just need to get it the rest of the way through and we should be good. Just give it some taps. There we are. Much easier than installing a regular rubber bush. And like I said, the other part of the bush assembly will go onto the wishbone. So it just slides on like so. And it can go on there. And then once we have this bush carrier bolted to the subframe itself, then the wishbone can go inside of this bush, and of course the wishbone can be bolted to the subframe as well. Okay, the next thing we need to do is get the anti-roll bar bushes installed. Very easy to do, they have a slit in them. Just need to apply some assembly grease. They can slide onto the bar then, and then we can get the entire lot into place, because essentially these bush carriers, they sit on top of the subframe. The anti-roll bar with the bushes then sits on top of that, and the whole thing is bolted down with these brackets here. So yeah, make sure you apply the grease liberally. You don't want these bushes binding up on the bar. And now comes the tricky part of trying to get everything in place on my own. So here goes then. That wasn't actually too bad, to be honest. And these bolts have to be torqued down to 165 Newton meters. So this is going to be fun. Yeah, it's going to be difficult. That's tight. I should be alright actually. So it's all 4 anti-roll bar bolts torqued down, and we'll apply our blue paint pen just so we know we don't have to touch these again. Next thing I'm going to do then is install the wishbones. So obviously we have the threaded part that goes through here, then a nut goes on the bottom, that is the inner ball joint. Then we have this end that goes to the rear here into the Powerflex poly bush. I'm going to apply some grease to that just so things move nicely. Here's how we're looking then. As you can see, that ball joint is fully seated and the wishbone is fully in the bush at the end there. And now let's get the other side installed and then we'll torque them both down together. Okay, that's the other side now installed. Let's get both of those nuts torqued down. On second thoughts, I think it'll just be easier to torque those nuts down once the subframe is back on the car. So what we'll do now is install the 2 bottom ball joints, the track rod assemblies, and then we can move this over to the car and lift it into position then. Okay then, so the entire subframe assembly is now done. The only thing that I haven't installed is the lower outer ball joints, which I just installed those to the hubs. Still need to torque them down, but I'll do that once the subframe is in place. And then once the subframe drops in, I can install those 2 nuts as well. So the subframe is now in, and how good is this looking? It literally looks brand new now. Still have the bolts and the nuts to torque down. Just wanted to get it into position first. So everything is nipped down. It's, it's not going to fall anywhere. It was pretty tricky to get it into position. Best thing that I would recommend is to drop the exhaust. As you can see, it's fully dropped off the car now. Slide that back out of the way so you haven't got to worry about jacking it up over the top of the exhaust. And if you can have 2 people, get someone to jack it up and then get someone to guide it in, of course, where it mounts to the chassis legs here. Kind of sits over a dowel. Once you can get a bolt in, and you get a bolt in the other side, you're pretty much laughing at that point. Of course, there is 1 bolt for the rear wishbone bush as well, and then there is 3 bolts on either side at the rear of the subframe. But yeah, let's begin torquing down all of the nuts and the bolts, then we can wrap this job up. Oh, also new drop links, they need to go on as well. Okay then, so let's do the main subframe bolts first. Now there is 2 different types. If you have the M10 bolt, I believe that is 59 Newton meters and then a 90-degree rotation. Obviously you have to, you're supposed to replace those bolts. If you have the M12 bolts, which is what I have, then they are just 100 Newton meters and you're good to reuse them. So yeah, all 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 bolts need to be torqued down to 100 Newton meters. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's all 10 main subframe bolts torqued down to 100 Newton meters. Next one then is the outer ball joint to the hub assembly. That needs to be torqued down to 70 Newton meters and then a 90-degree rotation. there's 90 degrees as well. Next up then is the outer ball joint, but where it bolts onto the lower arm. So these two nuts, they are pretty big nuts, they're like 21 mil. And I'm guessing the threads are like M14, because these both need to be torqued down to 175 Newton meters. So this is going to be fun. Next up then is the lower arm inner ball joint, which is this nut right here. That has to be torqued down to 80 Newton meters, then a further 90 degree rotation. There's 90 degrees. Next up then is the two drop link nuts, one at the bottom and the one at the top. Both need to be torqued down to 56 Newton meters. Now the final thing left is the trap rod end ball joints, and that has to be torqued down to 65 Newton meters. So then that is the entire subframe assembly now back in, and everything has been torqued down to spec. I just can't get over how good this is looking. Completely refurbished with all new steering and suspension components. With a few little cheeky upgrades as well, being the Powerflex polyurethane bushers. Can't wait to get this engine back in now. Wow, there we go. There is another big job done on the Mini Cooper S project, and it really feels like we're getting somewhere now. Obviously we still have the engine rebuild to come, which will be very soon, don't worry. It's probably going to be the next thing you'll see on the Mini now, rebuilding the engine block. Obviously we've already done the cylinder head, but yeah, it just felt good to get the front subframe assembly back in the car, and it really feels like we're making progress. For those that are asking, and for those that are wondering, am I going to be doing the rear subframe as well, because they like to suffer from rust? Yes, I probably will be doing that, along with a bunch of other jobs as well. I want to refurbish all of the brake calipers, maybe even do discs and pads at the same time. I don't know, but all of that will come later on down the line once I have the car up and running and on the road, because yeah, I don't want it to be off the road for any longer now than it really needs to. I want to get the engine back in, get it up and running, get it for an MOT, and then we can you know, sort out those few more jobs later on down the line. But yeah, hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. Like I said, I cannot wait to get this car up and running and take it for its first drive. Yeah, I've never even driven a Mini before in my entire life, and we've, you know, gone so far with this project now. We've gone quite a bit further than I, you know, first anticipated in going, but you know, we've got to do things right at the end of the day. If I notice there is an issue, or if I can improve something, I'm always going to try and do so. But yeah, hopefully you guys have enjoyed things anyway. Hopefully it hasn't been too long in waiting. I want to thank all of you guys for watching. Please give this video a like, leave a comment, and down below subscribe if you have not already done so. And I will see you all in that next one. Peace.